So originally this video was going to be a tutorial on how to start your own Patreon, but then I thought if I'm going to talk about Patreon, I should say something that you can't find anywhere else on the internet about Patreon, and that is my honest opinion. What's up and welcome to my channel. I'm Delilah and I'm a digital artist. So I've had my Patreon page for about 4 years now, starting with the wonderful year that was 2020. We all know what happened then. But anyways, so I've had it for 4 years and I wanted to talk about some of the things that I like and I don't like about Patreon in case you wanted to start your own. By the way, if you don't know what Patreon is, I'm going to put the definition on the screen right now because I have a hard time just describing it myself, but there's the definition right there for you to see in case you didn't know what Patreon was to begin with. So let me start with some of the things that I do like about Patreon. One thing that I like is that you can customize part of the page. So you can design your own banner. You can also choose a color scheme that you want throughout the whole page. Just a couple of things here and there. I like that you can customize the page, but that you can't customize the entire page. So that is unique to your brand. Because honestly, if you've ever had any experience designing your own website or blog, you would know that as great as it looks to have it all customized like that, it's a lot of work and can be really annoying sometimes. So I like the simplicity of a Patreon page. I also like that you can automate your welcome message to your patrons. So when somebody signs up for your Patreon, whichever tier that they sign up for, it doesn't matter, they automatically get a message from you welcoming them to your page. And that's something that you don't have to do every single time somebody signs up. It's automated. So I really like that feature. So now I want to talk about the tiers on the website. So if you are familiar or not, there are different tiers that you can sign up for, and each one has a different price point. The price point also determines the kind of rewards that you receive. So I really like this feature because you can do any price point that you want for any number of tiers, whether it's 1 or 20 or however much. And I like that you could also change it at any time. When I first started my Patreon page, I only had 6 tiers, which looking back at it, it is kind of a lot because the more tiers you have, the more variety of rewards you offer. And sometimes it's hard to keep up with which tier received what reward what month. So if I were you and you were signing up for the first time, I would keep it to 1 to 3 tiers at the most and keep the price point kind of low because everyone's broke nowadays. So asking somebody to pay, $200 a month for rewards is kind of unrealistic. So just keep it fair. Think about how much you would want to pay for whatever rewards you're listing. So now I want to talk about what I don't like about the tiers, and that's this new feature that came out I think last year, and it's the free tier. So basically anyone who signs up, they have the option to sign up for free. Now normally I don't have a problem with that. I like free stuff. I'm sure you know that about me, but the problem is that the whole point of Patreon is for people to support you, with their money. And if they're signing up for free, they're not really supporting you with their money. Not that we're being greedy over here, but again, that's the whole point of the website. They pay for the rewards that they receive. So if you're signing up for free, you're probably not going to get a ton of rewards because to be making all this content for free, in addition to the free content you make for social media, etc., it's kind of unfair to ask of any kind of creative person on Patreon. So the free tier kind of doesn't make any sense to me. I do like that you can use that as a feature for if you were paying before and then decide to cancel your subscription, you can stay on as a free member, which is helpful so you don't have to do all that profile setting all over again. But again, the free tier kind of doesn't make any sense for me, at least not for Patreon, So relating to tiers, I do have a couple of tips for that. One is one that I've stated already, which is to not have more than 3 tiers at a time. I would say 1 to 3 is the maximum to start because the last thing you want to do is to have a whole bunch of tiers that you have to monitor and create rewards for, and then you're overwhelmed by everything that you have to do. So keep it to a minimum. It's better to under promise and over deliver than to overwhelm yourself and make more work for you than you have to. Now I want to talk about the rewards themselves. I do like that you have the ability to offer any kind of reward It doesn't have to be about specifically what you do. So for example, I'm a digital artist, and not every reward that I offer my patrons is art. Some of them are related to art, but they're not art exactly. So for example, I might post a poll asking you about what I should be drawing next or what you want to learn. I may do a blog post giving updates on my personal and professional life. Or sometimes what I like to do is to create themed playlists. Like I did a playlist based on my own personality recently, which you can actually see in my most recent video that I posted before this one for when you are designing a spider donut. So check out that link and you'll see the playlist linked below in that description. But having a variety of rewards is really helpful, especially when you're working on a project that takes more than just a couple of weeks to work on. So sometimes I'll offer a playlist as a reward for 1 month, which doesn't take all month to do. So that way, once I post that reward, I can then work on the project that takes longer, and I'll have that month and the next month to work on that project. Also, I like that you can schedule the rewards. So you can create rewards for the next 5 months and schedule them all and just be ahead of the game. It's really helpful, especially when you're traveling or feeling under the weather, because you just never know. So that's a helpful feature too. Now I want to talk about a couple of random things that I like and random things that I don't like about Patreon. So we'll start with the positives. One thing that I do like is that you can download the tax information. If you make enough money on Patreon every month to have to pay taxes, which I don't know what that amount is. You have to check with your local state, whatever. I don't know what it's called, but you have to check with your state to see if you do have to pay taxes. But assuming you do, you can download that information off the website. So I like that they have that. Also, I like that they have analytics. So you can see who visited your page and how often, and a whole bunch of other analytics that I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but I also like that they have that ability. I also like that it doesn't cost you anything. So I know for websites like Etsy and maybe some other websites, there are so many little fees that you have to pay here and there, and it just adds up. With Patreon, you only get charged a fee if you make any money. So if there's a month that you're not making any money, or several months, you're not getting charged anything. They just take out a small percentage of what you make every month. So it's not a huge amount too, so I really appreciate that, because if I'm giving you half my money, then I'm not making that much to begin with. But they're only taking a small percentage, so I really appreciate that too. Also, I like that you can get feedback from your patrons. I feel like you're more likely to receive feedback from people on Patreon because they're actually there to support you than if you were to just post it on social media. Like lately, and by lately I mean like in the last couple of years, I feel like artists have been very unseen, especially on Instagram, and the sense of engagement has significantly dipped over the last couple of years. So I barely get any kind of feedback on any of my artwork or comments or anything. So at least with Patreon, people are actually there for your art. They're not just there to see everything. And so you're more likely to get any kind of comments or criticism or critique, any kind of feedback really that you're looking for. You have a higher chance of getting it on Patreon. By the way, a random tip that I would like to offer too is to create an FAQ. Sometimes, even if you know what Patreon is, you may not know exactly how it works as somebody who wants to sign up as a supporter. So having an FAQ is really beneficial for them to use as a reference on how it all works and how to sign up, etc. So definitely create one for your patrons. I have one that I created myself. It's linked in the description, so maybe it'll help you with your patrons and with creating an FAQ yourself. Okay, so with positives come the negatives. Let me tell you some things that I don't really like about Patreon. And that is that I feel like you have more of a pressure to create high quality artwork or high quality rewards. At least with social media, you're putting that out there for free. So, if you come up with something crappy, it's not a big deal. But with Patreon, people are paying for these things. And so for you to put out a crappy drawing may seem like it's just not worth their money or their time. So you kind of feel more pressure to create these beautiful works of art or whatever it is that you do for a living. and it kind of sucks, you know? So that's why sometimes it takes me longer to create a reward for Patreon than it does to just post something on social media, because I really want to make it worth your time and your money, you know? Another thing I'm not fond of is that you kind of might feel like you're competing with other patrons or Patreon artists, you know? So the list of rewards, especially that you offer in the beginning, may not be that extensive or that impressive either. But you know, you're just starting out and you're just learning how things work. But if you go on the page of other artists, they may offer this extensive list of rewards that there's no way you can compete with. You know, somebody might be offering a whole list of things for just $1 when your dollar is just mainly a tip jar, just like a thank you for your support. So it's kind of hard to try and get people to sign up for your stuff over somebody else's when you don't offer as much. So you may feel the need to offer more than you can deliver, and it can be kind of overwhelming and may cause some burnout. So that's just something else to keep in mind. So something else that I'm not fond of about Patreon is something that I honestly would have never known about or seen coming if I hadn't started a Patreon page a couple years ago. And well, just to give you a heads up, I do have a few patrons and I love them to death. They are amazing people. And I'll even list their names on the screen right now so you can see all my wonderful supporters. By the way, you guys are awesome. I love you. But something that I didn't really know would be the problem is that I haven't been able to really build a sense of community myself with my patrons. And that's because every patron right now that I have every single one of them is somebody that I know in person. I'm even related to some of them. And because they're just to support me as a person, they aren't necessarily there to support me because they love my art. Not that they don't, I know that you do, I really appreciate it. But because they're not there for the rewards or for the art, it's hard for me to be able to post a poll or ask a question and get any kind of response from anyone. So because nobody's responding to anything, there's no sense of community being built. That's something that I wouldn't have foreseen if I hadn't started a Patreon page and if I hadn't been supported by the people that I know. And speaking of being supported by the people that I know, if it wasn't for them, I would have been doing all of this art, all of these rewards for the last 4 years and been receiving no money. So because the people in my life are supporting me that way, which I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it, if they hadn't been, I would have felt like I was doing a lot of this for no reason at all. And I don't know if I would have kept going for 4 years if I hadn't been receiving any kind of support in that way, you know? So, you know, I'm so grateful to them, but it also makes me wonder what would have happened if they hadn't signed up. I don't know if I would have continued to have the drive to keep going and trying to get supporters if I wasn't getting anything to show for it for 4 years straight. So in conclusion, if I were to give Patreon a star rating of some kind, let's say 1 out of 5, I probably would give it 4 stars out of 5. I do think it is completely worth it to sign up for Patreon, but also keep in mind some of the things that I mentioned. Don't be afraid to advertise it, to tell everybody, even those who, you know, are not aware of your art, all about Patreon, and keep advertising as much as you can. I'm doing this whole video right now. Hopefully that helps. By the way, if you want to sign up for my Patreon, there's a link in the description. But I think overall, despite some of the negatives, it is completely worth it to sign up for it. Thank you very mucho for watching my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you can, please, because I mean, at least that's a free way to support me. But again, thank you so much for watching this video. Bye. Yay. What is wrong with me? In the website. Why did I hesitate? There are a couple tips that I would ask. Why would I ask? I would give you the tips. I'm not asking you for tips. Oh my God. That not every reward you after, is that even a word? As to make a variety. Was that even English? Nope. Something else that I don't like is something else. What's it again?